First Contact Protocols. The Orientation. Ambassador Zix-427 stood before the gleaming glass doors of Earth's diplomatic training center, their crystalline appendages shimmering in the morning sunlight. Despite being one of the most decorated diplomats from the crystalline confederation of Proxima Centauri, they couldn't help but feel their core temperature dropping, what humans might call getting cold feet. The building itself was a testament to humanity's attempt at making their alien visitors feel welcome. Its architecture seamlessly blended various galactic design elements, sweeping crystalline spires reminiscent of Proximan architecture, organic curves favored by the Meridian Alliance, and the practical efficiency of human engineering. Remember, Zix-427 muttered to themselves, reviewing their preliminary briefing. No sudden movements. Maintain appropriate distance, and absolutely no spontaneous color changes. They had spent 3 Earth months studying human behavioral patterns, yet still felt woefully unprepared. Their species' natural tendency to shift colors with emotional states had already caused several diplomatic incidents, including the infamous Rainbow Panic at the United Nations last year. A gentle chime announced their arrival as they passed through the decontamination chamber. Inside, they were greeted by Director Rashid Hassan, a distinguished-looking human with silver-streaked hair and laugh lines around his eyes. His calm demeanor immediately helped stabilize Zix-427's shifting hues. "Welcome to Earth's Diplomatic Training Center," Director Hassan said, maintaining the recommended 3-meter distance. "We're delighted to have a representative of your caliber joining our program." Zix-427 carefully modulated their voice to the lower frequencies the humans found soothing. "The honor is mine, Director. I hope to learn much about preventing unfortunate incidents." "Ah yes, we've all had our learning experiences," Hassan chuckled. "Did you know that the first Etherian ambassador accidentally released their calming pheromones during a state dinner? Half the human delegates fell asleep in their soup." The director's easy manner helped Zix-427 relax slightly, their crystalline surface settling into a soft blue. As they walked through the facility, Hassan explained the center's unique approach to cross-species diplomacy. "We found that the key isn't just teaching aliens about humans, but helping both species understand their instinctive reactions to each other," Hassan explained, gesturing to various training rooms they passed. In one, a holographic simulation showed a Meridian diplomat practicing human handshakes without activating their defensive spines. "Our biggest challenge," Hassan continued, "is overcoming millions of years of evolutionary programming. Humans, for instance, have inherited certain, shall we say, strong reactions to anything that resembles their ancient predators." Zix-427 nodded knowingly. Their own species' crystalline appearance had caused more than one human to freeze in place, likely triggered by ancestral memories of ice ages and extreme weather threats. The tour led them to a large classroom where several other alien diplomats were already seated. Zix-427 noticed the careful arrangement. Each species was placed in a position that would cause minimal stress to their human instructors. The arachnids from Epsilon Eridani were wearing what appeared to be tiny top hats and bowties, presumably to appear less threatening. Their first instructor, Professor Junko Tanaka, entered the room with a warm smile. "Welcome to Human Interaction 101, Beyond the Screaming Phase," she announced. "Today, we'll be starting with basic human comfort zones and how to avoid triggering their fight-or-flight response." The professor activated a holographic display showing various alien species and their typical effects on human psychology. "Remember," she emphasized, "humans are remarkably adaptable. Their initial reactions can be overcome with proper preparation and presentation." Zix-427 diligently took notes as Professor Tanaka explained the nuances of human body language and personal space. They learned that their species' natural height of 3 meters often intimidated humans, and practiced a slight stoop that made them appear less imposing. The morning session concluded with practical exercises in human greetings. Zix 427 was paired with a holographic human for practice, carefully maintaining their color stability while executing what humans called a professional nod. During the lunch break, they found themselves sharing a table with Kirk Click, an insectoid diplomat who had mastered the art of wearing human business attire to offset their naturally alarming appearance. The secret, Kirk Click chittered quietly, is to always carry something mundane and human. I find that holding a coffee mug makes them see you as a person rather than a giant bug. As the day progressed, Zix 427 began to understand that success in human diplomacy wasn't just about following rules. It was about finding creative ways to bridge the gap between their evolutionary fears and their intellectual understanding. By the end of their first day, Zix 427 had filled several data crystals with notes and observations. Their color had stabilized into a confident azure, and they had successfully managed to greet 3 human staff members without causing any visible anxiety. Director Hassan met with them again as the day concluded. "Excellent progress," he noted. "Remember, Ambassador, the goal isn't to completely eliminate human instinctive responses. That's impossible. The goal is to work with those responses, to help humans move past their initial reactions, and see you for who you are." As Zix 427 prepared to leave for their assigned quarters, they reflected on the day's lessons. Perhaps the key to successful human interaction wasn't about suppressing their own nature entirely, but about finding the right balance between alien and relatable. Tomorrow, they decided, they would try wearing a hat. Cultural catastrophes. The evening of the first annual interstellar diplomatic reception arrived all too quickly. 2 weeks of intensive training had given Ambassador Zix 427 confidence, perhaps too much. They had chosen a subtle pewter tone for their crystalline form, and wore what their human fashion consultant assured them was a perfectly acceptable bow tie. The reception was being held in the grand ballroom of the Diplomatic Training Center, a space specifically designed to accommodate beings of all shapes, sizes, and atmospheric requirements. Floating light spheres cast a gentle glow that wouldn't aggravate any species' sensitivities, and the air was carefully filtered to remove any potentially offensive pheromones. Remember, Director Hassan had advised earlier, tonight is about practical application. Theory meets reality. He'd smiled that reassuring smile of his, but Zix 427 had noticed the slight tension around his eyes. The first test came immediately upon entering. A human diplomat from the Brazilian embassy approached, hand extended. Zix 427 had practiced this. Extend crystalline appendage, maintain solid form, apply exactly 2.3 newtons of pressure, just as they'd rehearsed. What they hadn't practiced was responding to an unexpected sneeze from a nearby Martian ambassador, whose silicon-based spores caused them to involuntarily flash through 7 different colors. The Brazilian diplomat jumped back, champagne glass dropping from her other hand. Zix 427 instinctively reached to catch it, forgetting that rapid movement was precisely what they'd been taught to avoid. 3 nearby humans flinched, and a security officer's hand twitched toward his stun baton. "Excellent reflexes, Ambassador." Director Hassan's voice cut through the tension as he smoothly stepped forward. "I see those hand-eye coordination exercises are paying off." His casual tone helped reset the atmosphere, though Zix 427 noticed their own color had shifted to an embarrassed mauve. Across the room, other alien diplomats were navigating their own challenges. Ambassador Kirk Click had developed a clever solution to the human aversion to chitinous appendages by wearing elegant white gloves, but hadn't accounted for the sound their mandibles made while enjoying the hors d'oeuvres. Several humans at the buffet table were trying not to stare as the insectoid diplomat enthusiastically crunched through a plate of canapés. The Neptunian delegation had their own issues, their naturally flowing form contained within humanoid environmental suits. They'd studied human facial expressions extensively and programmed their suits' visual displays to show appropriate emotions. Unfortunately, a minor computational error meant they were expressing emotions exactly 3 seconds after they were appropriate, creating an unsettling lag in social interactions. Zix 427 was beginning to understand why the training program emphasized flexibility over rigid protocol. Every carefully planned interaction seemed to encounter some unexpected variable. When a young human child, daughter of one of the diplomats, wandered into the reception, several alien species simultaneously tried to adjust their appearance and behavior to appear non-threatening. The resulting chaos looked like an interstellar circus having a collective anxiety attack. The turning point came during Director Hassan's welcome speech, as he addressed the gathered diplomats about the importance of overcoming instinctive barriers. The environmental control system malfunctioned. The sudden temperature drop caused Zix 427's crystalline structure to emit a soft, melodious chiming, a natural response for their species, but not one covered in the protocol manual. To everyone's surprise, the humans found the sound enchanting. The Brazilian diplomat who had jumped away earlier approached again, this time with genuine curiosity. "That's beautiful," she said. "It reminds me of wind chimes on Earth." For the first time, Zix 427 realized that their natural characteristics could bridge gaps rather than create them. They carefully modulated their crystalline resonance, creating a gentle harmony that seemed to put the humans at ease. Other aliens took note, beginning to incorporate their own natural behaviors in ways that intrigued rather than alarmed their human counterparts. The evening evolved into an impromptu cultural exchange. Kirked Click demonstrated how their mandible clicks could create complex rhythms, synchronizing with Zix 427's crystalline tones. The Neptunians discovered their delayed expressions could be played for humor, turning their technical glitch into an entertainment feature. Professor Tanaka, watching from the sidelines, made rapid notes on her tablet. "This is unprecedented," she murmured to Director Hassan. "They're not just following the protocols. They're innovating, adapting, creating new ways to interact." As the reception wound down, Zix 427 found themselves surrounded by a small group of human diplomats, all genuinely interested in learning about crystalline social customs. Their color shifts, rather than causing alarm, had become a point of fascination, with humans trying to guess their emotions based on the subtle changes. "You know," Director Hassan said as the last guests departed, "sometimes the best diplomatic breakthroughs come from what we consider our worst mistakes. Your species' natural properties, which you've been trying so hard to suppress, might actually be your greatest asset in human relations." Zix 427 shifted to a thoughtful violet. "Perhaps," they responded, "the goal isn't to make ourselves less alien, but to help humans understand that different doesn't always mean dangerous." The cleaning crew arrived, including both humans and aliens working together with remarkable efficiency. A human janitor casually handed a cleaning tool to a Meridian diplomat who had stayed to help, their previous anxiety around the species' spines apparently forgotten in the spirit of cooperation. As they headed back to their quarters, Zix 427 reflected that tonight's catastrophes had taught them more about human interaction than 2 weeks of formal training. Sometimes it seemed the best way to help humans overcome their instinctive responses was to stop being so afraid of triggering them. Their bow tie had come slightly askew during the evening's events. They decided to keep it that way, perfectly imperfect, just like interspecies relations. The human factor. No amount of diplomatic training could have prepared anyone for the events of that fateful Tuesday morning. A massive solar flare had knocked out the diplomatic training center's main power grid, leaving the facility's diverse inhabitants in a potentially dangerous situation. Each species required specific environmental conditions to survive, maintained by carefully calibrated life support systems. Director Hassan's voice came through the emergency communication system, powered by backup generators. "Attention all residents. We have approximately 3 hours of emergency power remaining. Engineering teams are working on repairs, but we need to conserve energy and maintain calm." Zix-427 found themselves in the main atrium with several other alien diplomats and human staff members. Their crystalline structure detected the rising temperature as the climate control systems struggled. Across the room, the Neptunian delegation's environmental suits were showing warning signals, and Click's exoskeleton had begun to glisten with stress-induced secretions. That's when Junior Engineer Priya Patel took charge. "Right," she announced, her voice steady despite the crisis. "We need to prioritize life support for the most vulnerable species. Ambassador Zix-427, your crystalline structure can help us." Zix-427 shifted to an attentive blue. "How can I assist?" "Your people evolved to regulate thermal energy naturally. If we modify the emergency power distribution, you could act as a heat sink for the Neptunian environmental suits. We just need to figure out how to create a safe connection." The next few minutes demonstrated exactly why humans had managed to survive on their death world of origin. Priya moved with focused efficiency, treating the potentially dangerous alien biology not as a threat, but as a resource. She worked with Zix-427 to create a makeshift thermal transfer system using spare parts and crystalline resonance. Meanwhile, Click revealed that their species' stress secretions had remarkable cooling properties when exposed to air. Instead of hiding this potentially unsettling biological function, they offered to help cool critical systems. The humans present didn't flinch or show disgust. Survival took precedence over instinctive reactions. Professor Tanaka, who had been documenting the crisis, noticed something remarkable. "Look at the interaction patterns," she whispered to Director Hassan. "No one's following the protocols, but there's no panic. They're working together instinctively." She was right. Humans were working alongside aliens without any of the usual careful distance or practiced approaches. A human security officer was helping a Meridian diplomat adjust their spine configuration to better reach a tight space. The Brazilian diplomat from the reception was communicating with the Neptunians using improvised sign language, their delayed expressions no longer causing any confusion. "Temperature critical in Section C." Came a call from the emergency system. Without hesitation, Zix-427 extended their crystalline appendages, creating a network of thermal conductors. The humans present didn't recoil from the sudden movement. They were too busy coordinating with other aliens to stabilize the affected areas. "We need more power for the core systems," Priya announced. "Ambassador Zix-427, can you modulate your resonance frequency? We might be able to convert some of that energy." What followed was a crash course in cinephysics and engineering. Humans and aliens worked together, using each species' unique characteristics to solve problems. The Neptunians' computational abilities, freed from trying to mimic human expressions, proved invaluable in calculating power distribution. Click's precise mandible control helped adjust microscopic connections. As the third hour approached, the main power grid hummed back to life. The assembled group, covered in various alien secretions, technical fluids, and sweat, looked at each other with new understanding. They had done more than survive a crisis. They had shattered the barriers that training had only begun to address. Director Hassan, his usually immaculate suit stained with coolant, gathered everyone in the main hall. "Today," he said, "we learned something vital about human-alien relations. In a crisis, humans don't see alien features as threatening. They see them as tools, as assets, as part of the solution." Zix-427, their crystalline surface still radiating absorbed heat, noticed they had been shifting colors rapidly throughout the crisis, but not a single human had shown concern. Their natural abilities, which they had spent so long trying to control, had proven essential. Professor Tanaka was practically glowing with academic excitement. "This is revolutionary. The protocols we've been teaching, perhaps we've been approaching this all wrong. Instead of teaching aliens to suppress their nature, we should be helping humans understand how alien characteristics can be beneficial." "Like my stress secretions," Click chittered, mandibles clicking proudly. "Exactly," Priya answered, wiping some of said secretion from her forehead. Once we understood what it could do, it wasn't scary anymore. It was just useful. The day's events had demonstrated something profound about human nature. Their fear of the alien could be completely overridden, not by careful protocols or practiced behaviors, but by the simple act of working together toward a common goal. As cleanup crews began restoring the facility to its usual state, Zix 427 noticed humans and aliens naturally grouping together, sharing stories of the crisis, laughing about close calls. The careful dance of diplomatic protocol had been replaced by something far more valuable: genuine camaraderie born of shared experience. "Director," they said, their color settling into a determined green, "I believe we need to revise the first contact protocols." Hassan smiled. "I believe you're right, Ambassador. Today's crisis has taught us more about human-alien relations than a year of careful training ever could." The power failure had done what months of diplomatic efforts couldn't. It had shown that when survival was on the line, humans could move past their evolutionary programming and see aliens not as threats, but as allies. Breaking the ice. In the weeks following the power crisis, the Diplomatic Training Center underwent a remarkable transformation. What had once been a facility focused on careful protocols and controlled interactions became a laboratory for innovative approaches to human-alien relations. Zix 427 found themselves at the center of these changes, working closely with Director Hassan and Professor Tanaka to develop new integration methods. Their first breakthrough came during a routine cultural exchange session that turned unexpectedly memorable. Today, Professor Tanaka announced to the gathered diplomats, "We're going to try something different. Instead of suppressing your natural behaviors, we want you to demonstrate them, but with a twist." The twist, as it turned out, was humor. The Neptunians discovered that by intentionally exaggerating their delayed expressions, they could tell incredibly effective jokes. Their timing, once a source of awkwardness, became perfect for comedic delivery. Humans found themselves crying with laughter as the Neptunians performed what they called delayed reaction theater. Kirkt Click, inspired by the success of the Neptunians, organized what they called a scary feature fashion show. Alien diplomats showcased their most intimidating natural features while wearing increasingly ridiculous Earth accessories. The sight of a Meridian diplomat's defensive spines adorned with tiny Christmas lights had even the most nervous humans giggling. But it was Zix 427's contribution that really changed the game. They discovered that by precisely controlling their crystalline resonance, they could create complex harmonies with human musical instruments. What began as a casual experiment during a break period evolved into weekly senharmonic concerts, where humans and aliens performed together in a stunning blend of Earth music and alien sounds. "It's fascinating," Professor Tanaka noted during one particularly successful session. "When humans encounter alien features in a context of creativity or entertainment, their fear response is significantly reduced. They're not just tolerating differences, they're celebrating them." The success of these programs led to more experimental approaches. The facility's cafeteria became a testing ground for what they called diplomatic dining, where potentially unsettling alien eating habits were transformed into culinary performance art. Humans found themselves applauding as Kirkt Click demonstrated their species' elaborate mandible-based food preparation techniques. Director Hassan supported these initiatives with characteristic insight. "What we're seeing," he explained during a staff meeting, "is the power of controlled exposure in a positive context. When humans can laugh with aliens, they stop being afraid of them." The breakthrough moment came during an impromptu late-night gathering in the facility's recreation area. A human staff member had brought in a karaoke machine, and what followed could only be described as interstellar open mic night. Aliens who had spent months carefully moderating their voices to avoid startling humans were now enthusiastically attempting Earth pop songs, while humans tried to mimic alien vocal patterns. Zix 427, who had been observing from the sidelines, found themselves pulled into the festivities. Their crystalline forms' natural color shifts, synchronized with the music, created an impromptu light show. The humans present were mesmerized, not frightened, by the display. "You know what's really interesting?" Priya commented, watching the performance. "A month ago, sudden color changes would have triggered our fight-or-flight response. Now we're asking for encores." The event catalyzed a new understanding. Fear of the alien could be overcome not just through careful protocols, but through shared joy and creative expression. The Diplomatic Training Center began incorporating these insights into their training programs. New modules were developed. Creative communication through xenobiology, turning alien features into performance art, and cross-species humor, finding common ground in uncommon places. The results were impressive. Graduation rates improved, and more importantly, the quality of diplomatic interactions showed marked improvement. Even the more conservative members of the diplomatic community had to admit the success of the new approach. When a delegation of high-ranking Earth officials visited the facility, they were treated to a demonstration that would have been unthinkable just months before. The demonstration began with what appeared to be a traditional diplomatic reception. Then, on cue, the aliens began incorporating their natural behaviors into an elaborately choreographed performance. Zix-427's crystalline harmonics provided the soundtrack, as Kirked Click performed a mandible percussion solo. The Neptunians' delayed expressions told a complex story through interpretive dance, while the Meridian diplomats created stunning light patterns with their bioluminescent spines. The officials, who had arrived expecting to see examples of aliens suppressing their alien nature, instead witnessed them celebrating it, and humans celebrating with them. The performance concluded with humans and aliens taking a bow together, all traces of evolutionary fear response forgotten in the shared moment of achievement. "This," Director Hassan announced to the applauding audience, "is the future of human-alien relations, not in pretending to be less alien, but in helping humans understand that different can be beautiful, exciting, and enriching." As the evening wound down, Zix-427 reflected on how far they'd come from their first nervous days at the facility. Their color shifts, once carefully controlled, now flowed freely, creating patterns that humans had learned to read and appreciate. "You've started something remarkable here," Professor Tanaka told them later. "We're not just teaching aliens how to interact with humans anymore. We're teaching humans how to embrace the alien." The success of the new approach was perhaps best summarized by a comment from one of the visiting officials. "I came here expecting to learn how aliens could become more human-friendly. Instead, I learned how humans could become more alien-friendly. I think I prefer it this way." Bridge between worlds. 1 year after Ambassador Zix-427's nervous first steps into the Diplomatic Training Center, the facility hosted the inaugural Interstellar Cultural Integration Summit. The Grand Hall, once carefully arranged to minimize alien-human contact, had been transformed into a vibrant space, celebrating diversity across the cosmos. Director Hassan stood at the podium, addressing an audience that would have been unimaginable 12 months ago. Humans sat comfortably alongside aliens of all forms, no careful spacing or protective protocols in sight. Children from the nearby international school darted between Meridian diplomats, wearing self-made paper spines in tribute to their new friends. "When we began this journey," Hassan started, his voice carrying the weight of achievement, "our goal was simple: teach aliens how to avoid triggering human panic. What we discovered instead was something far more valuable. We learned how to transform that panic into curiosity, and that curiosity into connection." Zix-427, seated in the front row, allowed their crystalline form to shift through a rainbow of colors, each one reflecting the emotions of the moment. Nobody flinched. Instead, several human audience members nodded appreciatively, having learned to read the emotional language of crystalline color shifts. The summit showcased the remarkable progress made in human-alien relations. The Exenharmonic Orchestra, now a permanent fixture of the center, performed pieces specifically composed to incorporate alien biological features as instruments. Kirked Click conducted, their mandibles creating perfect rhythm, while human musicians played alongside aliens in a harmony that transcended species. Professor Tanaka presented the academic findings of their year-long experiment in alternative integration methods. Our success rate in diplomatic integration has increased by 300%, she reported. More importantly, we've seen a fundamental shift in how humans perceive alien characteristics. Features that once triggered fear responses are now viewed with interest and appreciation. The presentation included footage from the center's newly established First Contact Youth Program, where human children were introduced to alien species through play and creative activities. The video showed a young girl teaching a Neptunian diplomat to play hopscotch, completely unfazed by their environmental suit's delayed expressions. Children, Professor Tanaka explained, have shown us that fear of the alien isn't innate, it's learned. And what can be learned can be unlearned. The summit's centerpiece was the announcement of the Galactic Cultural Exchange Initiative. Under this new program, aliens would no longer need to suppress their natural characteristics. Instead, they would be encouraged to share them in ways that humans could understand and appreciate. Priya, now head of the center's Technical Integration Department, demonstrated the practical applications of their discoveries. She showed how alien biological features, once considered hazards to be contained, were being integrated into Earth's technology and culture. Crystalline resonance was being studied for energy storage, while meridian bioluminescence had inspired new approaches to sustainable lighting. The key, she explained, was stopping trying to make aliens seem less alien, and instead helping humans understand how alien characteristics could enrich their lives. During the summit's closing ceremony, Zix 427 took the stage. Their crystalline form, now adorned with Earth-style decorations that complemented rather than concealed their alien nature, sparkled under the lights. A year ago, they began, their voice modulated to carry both human frequencies and crystalline harmonics. I arrived here terrified of causing human panic. I learned to suppress my natural behaviors, to move carefully, to control every aspect of my alien nature. But what we discovered was that the path to true integration wasn't in becoming less ourselves. It was in helping humans see the beauty in our differences. The audience watched as Zix 427 demonstrated their point, allowing their crystalline structure to create a dazzling display of light and sound. Human children in the audience gasped with delight, while their parents smiled, any trace of ancestral fear long forgotten. The summit concluded with the unveiling of the new First Contact protocols. Gone were the rigid rules about suppressing alien characteristics. Instead, the protocols emphasized cultural exchange, creative integration, and the celebration of diversity. The future of human-alien relations, Director Hassan announced in his closing speech, isn't about avoiding panic. It's about embracing wonder. As the delegates departed, the facility hummed with energy, both literal and metaphorical. Humans and aliens mingled freely, sharing stories, jokes, and plans for future collaboration. The careful dance of diplomatic protocol had been replaced by genuine connection. In their private quarters that evening, Zix 427 reviewed their original notes from their first day at the center. The pages were filled with warnings, restrictions, and careful protocols. They couldn't help but laugh, a sound that resonated through their crystalline form in musical waves. A knock at their door revealed Director Hassan, carrying what appeared to be a gift. I thought you might appreciate this, he said, handing over a small package. Inside was a holographic projection unit, programmed to display images from the past year, the Power Crisis, the first 10-harmonic concert, the children's program, and finally, today's summit. Each image showed the progression from fear to fascination, from panic to partnership. You know, Hassan mused, when humans first reached the stars, we thought we needed to prepare aliens to deal with our fears. Instead, you helped us overcome them. Zix 427 shifted to a color that humans had learned to recognize as profound contentment. Perhaps, they suggested, that was the real first contact. not between different species, but between what we are and what we can become. As night fell over the diplomatic training center, the sound of human and alien voices mingled in the corridors, no longer separated by protocols or fear. The stars visible through the facility's windows seemed to shine a little brighter, witnessing the birth of a new era in interstellar relations. Future alien visitors to Earth would still receive training, but not in how to be less alien. Instead, they would learn how to share their unique nature with the human race that had learned to embrace the extraordinary diversity of the cosmos.